Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 93, Meno 77a to b. We saw last time that Socrates and Meno have very different notions of what they can get out of this conversation. Socrates had tempted Meno to stay by mentioning the mysteries, through which Meno might change his opinion, while Meno, hearing the word mysteries, assumed that that meant he would be given even more new answers. Socrates, however, has no intention of spending the whole conversation simply giving Meno answers. He wants Meno himself to do some mental work. Perhaps because Meno is looking forward to the mysteries, he's more amenable now to finally give this answer about virtue, which he was supposedly promising a few answers ago. This is how Socrates gets out of giving an answer now. Alamen prothumia skeuden apolepso, kai su henaka kai emautu, legon toiauta. Well, I won't lack eagerness speaking such things, both on your account and on my own. Alhopos me uchoiost esomai pola toiauta legen. But I'm afraid I won't be able to say many such things. Al ithide peiro kai su emoi, ten huposchesin apodunai, kataholu epon aretes peri, hoti estin, kai pausai pola poion ectu henos, hoper facitus sunt tribontas ti hecastote hoiscoptontes, ala eases holen kai hugie e pe ti estin arete. But come now, you, try to deliver on your promise to me, and say about virtue what it is as a whole, and stop making many things out of the one, which people say in jest every time people break something, but leaving it whole and hale. Tell me what virtue is. I said whole and hale because that reflects holen kai hugie, but we could also say something like complete and organic. Tadege paradigmata par emu elephas. You have taken from me the paradigms. Socrates is clearly using the word paradigma loosely, the way most people use that word most of the time, to mean example. As we should know by now in a series on paradigmata, a paradigma is a minimalist concrete representation according to which a creator creates new degmata. Degmata are things following the lines of the paradigma with additional details, the sort of thing that a potter would use. In a loose sense, even a paradigma may be regarded as an example. According to this example, I can make other examples, but they are of a very different nature. They are the same as the paradigma, except that they have details which the paradigma does not have, because those details are irrelevant to the type of thing represented by the paradigma. Furthermore, there is need for only one paradigma to make degmata. What in fact are the paradigmata which Socrates is referring to here? The three previous answers through which Meno is supposed to be able to work out the sort of answer he is to give. All three answers supposedly demonstrate how to give an answer which pertains to the whole of the thing being explained, and not simply one or two examples of that thing. For example, the answer about shape refers to all types of shape. Actually, both answers about shape, they both are supposedly explaining shape itself, while the answer about color explains all colour and not simply red or brown or black or whatever. Ideally, by looking at the three answers and finding what is common in all three of them, that they all successfully explain the thing that they are supposedly answering, all of it in one go and not simply one or two of its aspects. Through looking at all these three and extrapolating or abstracting from these three answers, Meno would understand the sort of thing that he is now supposed to say about virtue. He would be able to explain what the whole of virtue is. The only problem with all of this is that the three answers did nothing of the sort. They did not explain shape or colour, although at least the first two answers about shape do refer to shape as a whole, while the answer about colour is not exclusive to colour, as Socrates points out. It would now be remarkable if Meno actually did give an answer which pertains to the whole of virtue. It would be even more remarkable if Socrates actually expected him to do that. I suspect that Socrates knows that Meno will make a mess of it. Here then is Meno's third answer about virtue, arete, and this time it isn't something he heard from Gorgias. Doketoinun moiu Socrates areteinai kathaperho poetes lege hairente kaloisi kai dynasthai, kai go tuto lego aretein, epithumunta ton kalon dunaton enai poridzesthai. Virtue seems to me then, Socrates, to be, as the poet says, to rejoice in handsome, beautiful things or people, and to have ability or to be in control. And I say this to be virtue, that one desires fine things, beautiful things, handsome things, and is able to acquire them. Actually, that interpretation creates too much of a doublet, being on the one hand desiring of handsome, beautiful things, and on the other being able to acquire them. This is doing Meno a disservice in this particular instance. It's actually more like someone who is desirous of fine things or people being able to acquire them. That is, the emphasis is on the type of person who should be able to acquire these fine things or people, the one who desires them. There are still problems with this answer. For example, virtue is considered here to be a person, and more precisely, a man. The participle is in the masculine. Meno seems to have misunderstood somewhat the demand of Socrates for an answer which would be one in all instances of virtue. Instead of that, Meno has chosen to talk about one man in connection to all fine things or people, beautiful things, handsome people. The problem with ton kalon here is that it is very ambiguous. First of all, the meaning of the word kalos can be from fine, beautiful, handsome, anything pertaining to what appears to be good, and the form itself is genitive plural, so we don't even know which gender we're talking about, so that we don't even know whether this is about people or things. The verb connected with the fine things or people here is poridzesthai, to acquire, which would suggest that we're talking about things, fine things. Someone being able to acquire fine things reminds us of Hippias Minor, which was all about ability, dynamis, And we saw there how the many assume that someone with ability must be good in some way. And this we saw in connection with aristocrats who have power to make other people do what they want, and sophists, people with technai, people with the ability to do things, and it doesn't really matter what they actually do with those things, but they have the ability. So here we have a person who is able to acquire fine things. I expect that Meno doesn't mean he only has the ability but doesn't use it. He would think that he's talking about someone with the ability to acquire fine things and therefore does actually acquire fine things. And who would he be thinking about? We may suspect that he is applying this to himself. He is someone who desires fine things and has the ability to acquire them, and he has some fine things. In short, he is saying that virtue is Meno. We should notice the attempt by Meno to make his answer sound a bit like the answer Socrates gave, although Socrates named people. He had the style of Gorgias and he named Empedocles, while here all Meno can do is quote a line which he can't remember was said by some poet. So he just says, as the poet says. This is not Homer, because the meter doesn't allow this to be Homer. And usually when people say, as the poet says, they do mean Homer. This is clearly not Homer, and usually in a generous answer, the name of the poet would appear. It's very impressive. What does the poet actually say? To rejoice in fine things and to be able to have ability or to control. There is no suggestion in the poet's words about being able to acquire the fine things which this person desires. We don't even know in which context these words were said. We don't even know the main verb upon which the infinitives depend. For example, I want to rejoice in fine things and be in control. There is no indication that these words were said in connection with virtue. Rejoicing in fine things, at least, doesn't seem to be particularly virtuous, not even in classical Athens. This answer is in fact even worse than the two previous answers Meno has given about virtue, because it's not even generalized to types of people. This is simply one person desiring fine things and being able to acquire them.